Guys, it is our privilege, our honor to bring up on stage, okay, as Arun mentioned, Harvard graduate, professor of marketing at the University of Chicago at Illinois, and really the primary advocate and believer and proponent of network marketing in the academic world, no other than Dr. Charles
King!
Let's give him a loud VCON welcome!
You know you wanna sing with us. That's why you know you should be scared of us. No smile, looks to kill. Straight talk, sex appeal. One touch gives me chills, and we ain't even close yet. Perfect all around, ain't been all over town. Show me how you get down, 'cause we ain't even close yet. And you got me feeling. Listen as I speak, 'cause I'm careful as a creep. You got me going crazy, and you know I can't sleep. The watching your moves, and you hypnotize me. You got me trembling like a little baby girl. You're so special, you're like diamonds and pearls. You got me spinning, and you got me in a twirl. You're my number one baby, and you're about to rock my world. You're dangerous, just get it up. The way you move, so scandalous.
Let's go get it. I am honored to be your speaker at VCON Indonesia 2012. I am very impressed with this company. I am very impressed. I'm very impressed with the industry and the role that you're playing in this enormously developing world of the Asian African market is virtually irreplaceable. You can be the leader of the world from this posture. I come to you as a college professor with 20 years of experience in researching the network marketing industry. I've been very aggressive about it. I worked hard to figure out what the industry is about, so I want to come to you with several points of view. Number one, I want to be a research professor who has studied the industry for 20 years. Number two, I want to talk to you as an educator who has spent 20 years teaching people about network marketing. Number three, I want to turn back and talk to you about the latest developments in the industry. And lastly, I want to emphasize where you stand long term in terms of opportunity. Now, with that overview, I want to again confess I'm an evangelist about the power of network marketing as an economic model, and secondly, as a vehicle for starting your own economic freedom base. It is a wonderful opportunity, particularly for people in the developing world. So with that, let's go to the presentation. My theme is that I want to emphasize your belief system in the network marketing industry on the one side, and secondly, in the profession on the other. Now with that, I have a central theme. My first slide, the central theme. I want to emphasize the theme that says, central theme, in decade 2013 to 2023, network marketing is going to be a rage and will build on the age of information, age of knowledge. Now, from my perspective, the age of knowledge is built around several dimensions. Let's see the dimensions. I want to organize the facts around these things. Number one, you have a fundamental history of the industry and the industry structure. Number two, you have a belief system about the process of network marketing, how you do it. Number three, you have a passion you feel for a particular product category, which you represent. And lastly, you have a company with the company power and structure. So we use information from all of those basic issues and organizations. Now, let's back to the issue. The fundamental thing I'm going to talk about will be where you are in the industry and how we draw from this body of knowledge into your application day to day. Now, I've organized a program around several topics. Number one, I want to talk about the changing decade of 2013 to 2023. The notion being that this is going to be a decade of dramatic change, and I think we should capitalize on that opportunity. Number two, I want to turn and talk about the direction I see the industry going in terms of entrepreneurism. We're seeing more and more home-based businesses developing, and this is a great opportunity for developing countries. Number three, I want to turn and talk about what I consider to be the most important opportunities for QNet. And lastly, I want to talk about what I think QNet's position is as of 2013 going forward into 2023. Now that is basically the outline. So let's go to the first slide, dealing with stats. Notice the numbers. We're talking about some dramatically impacting numbers that all of you should internalize. Now, a point. I want you to casually walk through this information with me. I do not want you trying to memorize it. I don't want you to try to take notes about it. You can download the entire presentation from the web. It's available to you. So merely walk with me through these concepts. We'll discuss them one at a time. Now, looking at the numbers are impressive. We're talking about a substantial industry of $153 billion in retail sales, representing 91 million network marketing practitioners or independent representatives. And that's growing dramatically over time. We have roughly 21 countries doing over $1 billion a year. That gives us an industry perspective. What do I expect you to do with that? Recognize that this is a powerful economic engine, and you are building on something that has momentum and can take you to the next generation of prosperity, success, and organizational development in the developing world. Now, let's turn to the next slide. Now, what I'm doing here is listing off the major countries. I don't expect you to try to memorize that. 2 or 3 conclusions. Number one, this set represents the top set of the $21 billion countries. And what I want you to look at is the United States dominates with approximately, what's our number? 29 million in terms of volume, and roughly 15 in terms of operational network marketing practitioners. Now, what I would like to do, can we move my chair, please? Can you move my chair? I'm sorry, this is a failure. Someone move it. Put it over on the side. Over here. That's fine. Turn it to the audience. Place the audience, please. Turn it around this way. Thank you. Now, I'm much more comfortable once I get seated. Okay. Now we're ready to roll. That's great. Okay, we're in control. Let's go now back to the numbers. The United States at 29.9 billion. Understand B versus M, with 15 million people in the United States. When you look at the United States and Japan, those 2 countries represent about 35% of industry sales. Then we look at the other companies in that region. We're talking about 6 countries with the dominant share. Let's go to the next slide. These are the companies as they progress down. This is the $1 billion club. All of these countries do at least $1 billion a year. Next slide. And now we drop continuing adding smaller countries over time. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, he gets to Indonesia. No, come back, please. Come back. Notice the summary again, $153 billion worldwide with 91.5 million people involved as distributors. Now again, the summary. The United States and Japan dominate the countries. Not yet. Come back. The United States and Japan dominate the countries, and they are essentially 35%. 21 countries do over $1 billion, and this is the total number. Now, what do I think you should do with this? Number one, I think you should be able to articulate to anyone asking about the industry, these are facts, the most documented information, most current, available from the World Foundation of Direct Selling Associations, the source of information. So anyone who asks you whether this is a home-based business out of the back of a trunk, this is a powerful economic engine about which you can speak with confidence to build your belief system. Now let's go to the next slide. In terms of relative power, Donna Empson and I went through this in some detail, and I said, this is what the industry structure looks like, sales by region. And we see, if you put Asia and Africa together, you're talking about the dominant sector in the world in terms of volume and certainly in terms of growth. Now, something to look at. Ask your question, what is the most powerful region in the world for network marketing today? It's clearly in Asia, with Africa behind it. That's your country, that's your world, that's your region, that's your economic area for development. In terms of numbers of people, we aren't sure because we don't have information from Africa, but we do have clear information that 51% of all networkers come from the Asian culture in Asia. So that says the power of the industry is located here. Next point. Next slide. As we leave that one, I want to ask two questions. Where are you strong relative to the strengths of the industry? We'll come back to that. Now let's look at the next question I want to drive, and that is a simple one. That there is a movement afoot across the world for developing entrepreneurial directions. More and more entrepreneurs are being born and enter the workforce every year than the previous year. Point being, we are in an age of uncertainty. What does that mean? That says that look around us. We have unemployment. In the United States, our unemployment is 8.3%. In fact, if you look at all the people who are unemployed and are no longer looking for work because they've been disappointed at not finding any, that number is probably more like 23%. In fact, if you look in Asia, you have a similar kind of ragged edge economy situation. A lot of unemployment, a lot of young people without work, a lot of young people undereducated or overeducated for their workforces. Same case in the United States. Students graduating from my classes this year will wait 6 months before they get a job. When they get a job, it probably won't be in the major of their choice. They will live in that job for 3 years before they're fired, meaning the next recession forces another drop in employment. People get unemployed again. The first people to be fired are the last persons hired. Last in, first out. That applies worldwide. So the end result is a lot of instability. Is that the reality? The point is that instability says we must do something for ourselves. We can't depend on corporate America or corporate Asia or corporate Africa. Those people are no longer dependable for our individual survival. So the trend is across the world that we should develop our own economic independence as entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. Now, the central theme here, what is an entrepreneur? The word entrepreneur comes from French, means, I believe, to entreprendre. That means to undertake. Now, pause for a second. To undertake means to develop your own style of home-based business. The objective being that for each of you, you may have a different kind of home-based business choice. Each of us should search for our passions, our interests, our abilities, and by all means accomplish and develop ourselves toward those objectives. Now let's turn to the next slide. The next slide simply says, what is a home-based business? And that says a business that is fundamentally done from the home, from the residence of the business owner. More and more people are taking the home-based business central. A lot of independent statistics have been gathered about that concept from the United States. Next slide. Now, these are United States-based numbers, but the similar kinds of statistics, I think, apply for the rest of the world, particularly your marketplaces. Number one, in the United States, we're talking about $427 billion a year through entrepreneurial ventures, home-based businesses. Number two, we're talking about roughly 34 to 36 million home-based businesses in operation. Number three, we're talking about, that number is staggering, 8,500 home-based businesses being created on an ongoing basis, with a new middle class developing from that. Now, for your purposes, coming forward, this is a great platform for building a middle class all across Asia, Africa, and the Arab world. Next slide, please. More numbers. The fact is that home-based businesses, if developed well and appropriately organized and managed, can succeed. The stats go, most home-based businesses last over 3 years versus less success for non-home-based businesses. Another point of view, over 50% of all families will have home-based businesses over the next decade. That's a reality, and interestingly enough, 50% of those home-based businesses will be college graduates, people who have been trained, well-educated, but simply are not able to find work and therefore take their employment search elsewhere. So that is a theme I want to take away, that the home-based business environment is real, is growing across America, and is growing across the world, particularly in the developing countries where unemployment is at least as bad as in the United States. Next slide. Now, there are various real advantages to the home-based business model. Simply stated, we're talking about your own time schedule. Secondly, we're talking about you can combine your family and your lifestyle and have your family involved in your home-based business. Many of you have your families involved in QNet. That's the point. You can have a home-based business including all your family, and in the United States, that home-based business model offers you about a $10,000 to a $15,000 tax deduction. Now, that will vary across different countries, different tax codes. But the point is, there clearly is a tax advantage for having a home-based business taking off tax operating deductions. And lastly, and the thing that I think is most important, that the home-based business model gives you a lot of self-independence and self-determination. The central theme, most home-based business entrepreneurs start there because they simply are unhappy or can't find work. Central theme. My experience in life has been that I can work with almost anyone. But earlier in my life, I found I could work for no one. I wanted to be an independent entrepreneur, and that's the reason I became a college professor, and I worked from that platform. I know that many of you in this room have those same concerns, those same passions for independence and self-development. The home-based business model is the place to do it, with many advantages beyond these. Let's continue. In terms of the challenges, it is not a free ride, meaning home-based business success does not come easily. You must plan for it, you must develop skills of organization and management, and you must do it consistently over time. The central theme that the home-based business operator must be, in fact, a salesman, saleswoman, and be able to generate cash and cash flow. You must align yourself with an organization that can support that. QNet has the ideal package of products and content that you can sell to generate revenue. Now you're going, oh, thank you very much. Your in-service people are outstanding. They move. They move furniture, they deliver service water. I can't live without them. So please, let's keep that program in operation. The central conclusion from this slide is simple. The home-based business is not a free ride, meaning you have to work at it, you have to be disciplined, you have to develop business skills to be successful. The next slide is, I think, very relevant. My message: the network marketing business structure can provide you exactly the kind of training that's needed in the home-based business environment. So I strongly endorse the home-based business model marrying with network marketing, and particularly with the QNet program. I think it's fantastic and very successful. Central theme: a marriage of the movement internationally toward self-employment, toward home-based business, is directly linked to the growth of network marketing over the next decade. This is the ideal model to be in. Now's the time to move forward with maximum speed and power. Next slide. I want to talk about the rise of developing countries and what the potential is, in my opinion, for your opportunity. Next slide. Point one, let's talk about the annual growth in the United States. Many network marketing companies who are abroad think they should be moving to the United States to capitalize on American prosperity. Wrong decision. For this reason, the United States prosperity is waning. In fact, as you'll see, the notion of the rise of the rest tells the tale. The message is that the time of the Western economy is slowly moving out. That means we are losing our momentum in Japan, in Europe, in the United States. Despite the fact that we drove the economy after World War II for the last 50 years, the reality is that the power is shifting to the developing world. The United States growing at 2 to 3% a year, whereas in the global market, 10 to 15% annual growth is not uncommon. So compare our growth at the United States level, 2 to 3% versus 10 to 15. Clearly, you want to invest in developing countries. Next point, more and more United States companies are moving abroad. What does that say? That says if you want to be associated with an American company, you can be associated with an American company from a foreign address. That's probably the best model to maintain your independence in the developing world and cooperate with United States operations. The powers that be have changed direction. Number one, the United States after World War II was the superpower. And after the fall of Russia and the iron power there, we now have the United States as the dominant world figure. But that's changing. The United States is gradually one of several other powers. And those other powers include China, India, Brazil. The central theme is that we don't expect the West to fall. What we do expect is the rest of the world to rise to our level of success. You can be involved in that new growth. And further, over time, the direct selling environment, the network marketing world, has changed dramatically. As I talked to you earlier, the changing direction in global sales of network marketing companies is shifting. United States and Japan still dominate at 35%. But when you take the next step and look at the developing countries, they have the power for tomorrow. Let's look at this slide. This one is worth hanging time on. Watch it. Review it. Number one, we talk about the developing population centers around the world. Now, when I look at this, I was somewhat amazed. And walk with me. These are guaranteed statistics, if any statistics are ever guaranteed. These are legitimate source numbers. If you look at India, 1.2 billion people. China, 1.3 billion. Look at Africa, 1.0 billion. Look at the Arab world, the 22 Arab League countries, 358 million. Another developing world, which is probably beyond your reach now, and that's Latin America, 583 million. Now that gives us a number of $4.5 billion. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. That's half the population of the world. That's your marketplace, the developing countries of the world. Now pause for a second. How much penetration does QNet have in each of these market areas? Not enough. When I talked to Donna about this, Donna Empson said, Professor King, we have small market shares in most of the developing countries. Let's see the next slide. Let's look at this number differently. Let's say of those 4 billion people, how many of those people are in fact qualified financially to deal in the network marketing arena? My students, when I show them, you made the previous slide back. When I look at these numbers and I talk to my students about this very slide, they say, but Professor, those are all poor people. To which I say, yes, but not all of those people are poor. Do we agree? The important thing is organize to do business with those people as they are. It's imperative we understand and deal with them from our perspective, given their level of economic power. What is it? Let's see the next slide now. Next slide. Looking at this, I think the numbers become clear. What did I do? The United Nations has estimated that in the developing world, roughly 20 to 30% of the developing country population is middle or upper class, 20 to 30%. That's a number. Now, if you use simple arithmetic, 20% of 4 billion people is, in fact, is the number that you see there, 900 million up to 1.4 billion marketing prospects for QNet. Does that make sense? Now, my central theme is that as we look at this, focus your attention where you have the power, where the growth exists. My central message is the opportunity is in the developing sectors of the world, and you're looking at the size we can forecast to be 1.4 billion people. That's your marketplace. That's where you should focus your effort, and all of you can qualify for being outstanding network marketing performers focusing on that market. Do you agree? Looking at it one more point of perspective, if you look at those numbers, they approximate the entire population of both India or China. Because India and China are in 1.3, 1.4 billion, and we're looking in that range. We're talking about 1.4 billion prospects for you in QNet in the same marketplaces. That's incredible. If you look at the United States by comparison, though we have a higher middle class, roughly 50 to 60%, we have a population of 300 million. So 50 to 60% of 300 million is only 150 million. 150 million compared to 1.4 billion? I'm coming to Asia. Let's see the next slide. Now this again looks at the proposition from where is the market and where are you? And Donna gave me these numbers on the far right, QNet sales by region. 53% of QNet sales are in fact in Asia, dropping down to roughly 37% of yours in the Middle East, dropping down further. You have no properties in obviously the United States and Canada, and 10% in Europe. Your marketplace is 80% plus 90% in the markets that are developing. That's wonderful. If she further said that if you look at the 10 top billion-dollar markets, you have very small to no presence at all. So the market is open for you. It's just a question of going to get it. So let's go get it. Next slide. This is a point I want to emphasize. Again, comparing as one market segment with other economic dimensions. Looking at the Arab world, we're talking about the Arab world per capita GDP about 5,000 US dollars. Their economy, $1.99 trillion. Is that powerful? That's powerful. The Arab world is consuming. It's not under-consuming. In fact, their consumption is in the 49% range. Not all Arabs are Muslims. There are different cultures in the Arab world, which you know better than I. The point is that all of those cultures have a need for network marketing products, network marketing processes, and you can work with them using the cultural mores, the cultural values, the cultural systems of those countries. I think the Arab world is a dramatic, undeveloped marketplace for QNet. Next slide, please. And here we see the story again. If we look at the Arab world, a large population of the Arab world is under 25 years old or lower. The end result is not like similar to the other developing countries in Asia. We're talking about substantial growth in the young people. The young people represent a capacity, an opportunity for growth and development that can't be readily matched anywhere else in the world. This is a point to emphasize. The opportunity is there. The question is, how do you go about getting it? In the United States, we have a population we call the new millennials. These are people between 18 and 30 years of age. They're our hardest market to reach. They're needful. They need work. They're interested in investing. They're interested in trying new adventures. They're leading the edge in home-based business development because they simply can't find employment. So the end result is applying that same model into the developing Arab world is a guaranteed winner if you use the right technologies and the right procedures. The marketplace is ready for development. In the United States, I'm in charge of building one university program aimed at teaching the new millennials, these young people, 18 to 30, how to do home-based business activity to give them a new entrepreneurial direction. We can do the same thing in the developing countries of Asia, Africa, and the Arab world. This must be focused. You must do it quickly. And the most important factor, these young people need income. More and more early marriages demand in the Arab world that they have enough economic power to support the marriage. So the end product is that market is rich, open, and viable. Next slide. Now I come to the richness of the presentation. I would like to emphasize 2 or 3 things. That I do not come to QNet as a new customer. I do not come to QNet naive about QNet. As many of you know, I had the opportunity working with Aaron George, he probably announced that, with his group, the Titans, in 2005. We did an outstanding program using a university model in Dubai. Outstanding success, several hundred people. We had hoped to go on to Africa and across the Middle East, but because of economic conditions and because of politics, that didn't develop. But I never lost touch with QNet. I never lost touch with Aaron. So when I went to see him in reviewing for this presentation today, I visited in his home, and he visited mine, met with his wife and family. The end result, we talked about the 2005 event. And I asked him, I said, Aaron, you've had some outstanding leaders. Are they still with you? Because we know that people dropping out represents a great problem for network marketing. He said, Dr. King, he said, almost all of those leaders are with me, and they've grown to success. As a matter of I was proud. Over the past 3 days, I've met student after student after student from that seminar series in Dubai who come up to me and say, Professor, I'm one of your students, shakes my hand and says, I have been successful. And I am awarded by God from those people because they did in fact follow the message, take the right practices under Aaron's leadership. Arun George has just been an outstanding leader for thousands of people, and now that has paid off. Now let's go to the next slide. The next slide is very simple, and that is that I think you have an outstanding path, an outstanding record. I emphasize the positive detail. Number one, we calculated your growth rate at being 15 to 20% over the last year. Now, as we talked about the impediments, the problems you faced, in one of your major markets in Africa, you faced the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring brought disaster in some network marketing groups. The end result was that the market was not as strong in Africa as in the past. So we know that you had 10, 15 to 20% growth based on the bad times that prevailed in Africa. So now let's turn back and let's ask the question, what can we expect in the future? I think there's no reason to think you can't match a 20 to 25% growth rate over the next 5 years. That's important information. What does that mean for all of you? It means all of you have to develop your organizations, and you have to develop your skills, and you have to develop your educational platforms. You have some of the best education in the country in your groups. Looking at across the world, enormous opportunity. So my theme is that the opportunity is there, you're launched. Now let's see the next slide. This is something I want to live with you, leave with you, live with you, and watch grow. Point being, in 1990, I became involved in the network marketing industry. I started studying it in great detail. This is something I wrote for Success Magazine back in that period called The Curve of Prosperity. And I talk about the 4 waves of growth from early formulation, concentration, momentum, and stability. Now, the fact is that all network marketing companies go through this, but many of them never get past where you are now. QNet is on the verge of going into momentum, and then it's takeoff time. Sorry? Thank you, thank you. Do we understand this curve? This says that you start in the beginning, you grow slowly, and then you hit a point where more and more people are accepting, joining, in fact, becoming leaders and moving forward. That's exactly what you're seeing here. The point being, you are entering momentum, and when you enter momentum, you start doubling, tripling, quadrupling sales and leadership until you hit stability. For companies that do a good job in managing momentum, they never get to stability. They just keep adding products, adding leaders, building further, expanding to new markets. It's a continuous growth process based on strong corporate leadership, strong field leadership. You have all the components, in my opinion, to keep this formulation process going into momentum, into stability, never. We'll just keep momentum going indefinitely. Okay. Next slide. Now, as I sing praises about what you could do, let's turn to the organization and look and see what you have done. First, you are a member of a conglomerate. QI, the conglomerate company, has components like you and others. The important thing is you have a strong corporate leadership that you heard from last evening. You have a long record of success after 14 years, so that means you're in a great position for future growth. Something to build on. You have experience in e-commerce. You have experience in developing leisure products. You have a whole host of product extensions that you're extending ongoing, and you've just entered the market for reproducible, consumed products that'll take you to the next level. Outstanding growth curve. And the end result is, would you like resorts too? And further expansion still further? I'm just very impressed with what I see in this company. Now let's go to the next slide. In terms of this particular topic, I want to say two things. That I have worked with many network marketing companies around the world. The first thing I was introduced to with QNet back in Aaron George's initial orientation to me in 2005 was a strong ethical behavior and philosophy and outlook of the leaders. And I didn't understand that until I watched them grow over time. These 4 points are so important to your people. And I see it, I've been seeing it for 3 days. I've been watching all of you. The notion of service, all of these young, successful people doing yeoman service, doing waiting tables, pushing carts, doing all the heavy-duty work, and yet they're successful entrepreneurs. When I talked to one today, and I said, why do you do this? It's not necessary. You're already successful. His comment was, it's to give back. We have been very successful. We believe it. I work with many companies, many very honorable and ethical organizations. I have never seen the kind of leadership commitment that I've seen here in these 3 days. The next point, the idea of teamwork. You have these teams, your V partners, building these fantastic organizations. I don't know of any company in the country, none in the world, that have this kind of experience and expertise and sophistication and enthusiasm that you have in the teamwork side. integrity, conduct ourselves with utmost integrity. That's a theme that everyone here has shared with me whenever I had time to talk, and I respect that you are doing precisely that. Last point, in terms of results orientation, something Arun shared with me in 2005. He said, Professor King, I asked him, I said, how are you going to measure results from our success, our training? Professor King, we'll measure results based on results. Our people will go do it. They will go do it and be successful. And I thought, I've heard that before. In fact, his people did go do it, and they're in training today in service. So I think it's proven that you are results-oriented, your leadership is driving that. I congratulate you. Next slide. This is a burning theme I have. As I watched your rhythm process at work, watching in-service practice, I thought to myself, this is a mandate. This is a mantra. This is a theme that prevails this whole organization. And the other evening, when we were watching the racing down to get the best seats in the meeting over the past 3 days, the people who got the front row seats next time didn't race. They gave the other people an opportunity to have their turn. And I thought to myself, where have I ever seen that before? The killers usually kill and continue to kill. But here we're sharing with one another. Again, I congratulate you. I congratulate you. I congratulate you. Next slide. As I look at your accomplishments, I'm merely reading off the pages now. You have this information better than I. I'm simply saying, look at the achievements you've in fact put together. You have a whole distribution system of corporate management, of V partners, V associates. You have agents doing other things in the markets, and you have an expansion mentality that says you are going to go forward in the developing countries. I think your organization is built to do it. I think you can do it. I wish you Godspeed in getting it done. Next slide. Next slide. If you look at the issue I often evaluate companies around, what are they doing in terms of product development? If you don't keep your products alive, you're going to fall. You're simply going to run out of sales opportunity. And I looked at what you've been doing, and your leadership told me that these were your 4 criteria: innovation, exclusivity, quality, and the fit with the QNet philosophy, and fitting your markets. The end product is, I think those criteria hang well. And yesterday, we walked through the display of all your products, and I was amazed at the breadth of your product development. Let's see the next slide. Look at this. You're covering the consumer market very effectively, all the way from energy to fashions to home care, education, weight management, personal care, luxury, nutrition, holiday. And again, I come back to the fact that you're now getting repeat purchase products into the market. You're doing a job there that will grow over time, will guarantee you duplicate purchasing, recurred buying, and give you greater strength for ongoing sales. So I think you're in the right place, in the right direction. I give you full credit. Next slide. I come back to this story. Next slide. Next, roll back, I'm sorry. We duplicated. Roll back one more. This program here, I want to re-emphasize this recurring repetition of consumable items. I want to emphasize that's your next growth platform. I want to emphasize how important that is. The more of that kind of reproducible sales and service, the better. The theme is that this can be done now very effectively. Now let's go to the next slide. Your distribution system's in place. There's no question about getting it done. Now I'm going to pause for a second. In my summary conclusion, and I was given roughly 35, 40 minutes, in my summary conclusion, I want to emphasize one thing, that education is the most powerful single platform for building a network marketing company. Education of its leadership, education of its customers, and maintaining an ongoing forward-thinking management style. You have all of those things in place. But through Networking University, we're going to be building a stronger educational platform over the next 6 months to a year. So I think the educational component, which I, of course, promote, I'm an absolute educator at heart, I promote that. I think you're going to be able to do it. I think we're going to have a platform to give you more and more direction, and the company is committed to it. So just look for the announcements to come. Networking University is going to offer you a certification program so all of your leaders can become powerful and be ever more competent in training your downline. The best is yet to come. So in summary, I want to make the point that this is one of the finest network marketing companies I've ever worked with because you have components that have come together. You have an outstanding management team that has in fact built a core philosophy around your values, your systems, and your beliefs. That core model for operational behavior is good. Secondly, you built an infrastructure of company. You built structure, corporate, major leaders, agents, a distribution system that works. You have a product development program that's ever expanding, going into consumable products. And more importantly, now you're building an educational program that will give you the foundation for future growth. As I close my presentation, I simply say, you're a company that has enormous potential. But before I close totally, I want to say something else. I've continued to talk about I all through my presentation. I want to emphasize several points. Number one, I am not I am we. I would like to recognize my wife, the operations officer of our corporation, of our training system, of our seminar program, Sandra King. Would you please stand? I could not be here if she weren't here. Now, item two. I want to recognize that I would not be here without the support of Donna Imson and without the support of Dr. Injay. I would not be here without the support of all of you who supported me during this hour. And to all of those in-service people, who did the furniture moving, did the water delivery, and helped me get here, and will ultimately get me off this stage. I very much appreciate their help, and I'm going to be here a while. So the important thing is I'll be here next time, and I won't need a chair. With that.